All right, so we're diving into speaking English more confidently.
Okay.
And you've sent over some really interesting stuff
Yeah.
about, like, conquering that fear.
Yeah.
So we've got these excerpts from a guide,
Okay.
and it seems like it's tailor-made for beginners.
It's fascinating how this guy just dives right into like the psychology of it all.
Right.
You know, that like fear of speaking up,
Yeah.
the worry about making mistakes,
Yeah.
all those mental blocks that can really hold you back.
Totally. It starts with this idea of starting small,
Right.
and the author actually shares this anecdote
Right.
about ordering coffee in Spanish.
Sure.
Using just 2 words and how empowering that was.
Yeah.
But is that really enough to build real confidence?
It might seem small, but like think about it every time you successfully use a new language.
Okay.
Your brain gets a little reward,
Okay.
a hit of dopamine
Interesting.
that reinforces the behavior and makes you want to keep going.
Right.
It's like those gamified apps
Yep.
that keep you hooked with like little achievements.
So even a simple, like, coffee please can be a stepping stone.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This guide emphasizes the power of those small wins.
Okay.
Think of it as building momentum. You wouldn't try to run a marathon
Right.
without training first.
Yeah, of course.
Same with language.
Mm.
Each small step makes the next one feel a little bit easier.
Okay. That makes sense. This guide also talks about practicing out loud every day,
Yeah.
even if it means, like, talking to yourself.
Uh-huh.
And I have to admit that feels a bit awkward.
I hear you. It might feel strange at first,
Mm.
but remember, your brain doesn't really distinguish
Oh, really?
between talking to yourself and having a conversation with someone else.
Interesting.
The same neural pathways for language production get activated.
So it's like a mental workout for my English skills.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like shadow boxing for your tongue,
Yeah.
building up those muscles for the real deal.
Uh-huh.
Find a space where you feel comfortable,
Okay.
maybe during your commute or while you're walking the dog,
Okay.
and just start talking. Nobody's judging.
And what about recording myself?
Right.
The guide mentions that as a technique, too.
That's a great way to get objective feedback.
Okay.
It's like having a mirror for your speech.
Okay.
You can hear your pronunciation, your rhythm, your fluency,
Yeah.
things you might not even notice when you're just thinking about speaking.
So I can catch those little slip-ups I might not be aware of.
Exactly. And don't just focus on the mistakes. Pay attention to what you're doing well, too.
Oh.
Celebrate those moments when you nail a tricky pronunciation
Yeah.
or express yourself clearly.
It's like being my own language coach.
Exactly. You're both the coach and the player in this game.
Cool.
And the more you practice, the better you'll get.
Right.
Now, the guide also dives into this fear of making mistakes,
Yeah.
which is something a lot of people struggle with.
I think everyone's been there.
Right.
I remember once trying to order food in Italy
Uh-huh.
and accidentally telling the waiter I was pregnant instead of saying I was embarrassed. It was mortifying.
That's a great example. And, you know, it's something that happens to everyone.
Right.
This guide really emphasizes that mistakes are a natural part of the learning process.
Okay.
In fact, they're often the most valuable learning opportunities.
But doesn't it feel awful in the moment?
Of course. But think about it this way. Most people are actually quite understanding,
Okay.
especially when they know you're learning a new language.
Yeah.
They've probably been there themselves.
Right.
And those moments when you fumble and then get corrected,
Uh-huh.
those are golden opportunities for learning.
So it's about shifting that perspective,
Yeah.
seeing mistakes as stepping stones rather than setbacks.
Exactly. It's about embracing the journey bumps. And all. Now, another important point the guide highlights is finding a speaking partner
Okay.
or an online community.
Right.
It specifically mentions resources like Conversation Exchange and Hello Talk.
So it's not just about solo practice, it's about finding people to actually speak with.
Right.
But what if I'm not ready for that yet?
That's okay. It's about finding what works for you.
Okay.
Start with whatever level of interaction you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Maybe just listen to other people speaking English at first.
Right.
Then you might try typing messages back and forth online.
Yeah.
And eventually you might feel ready to jump into a voice or video chat.
So it's like a staircase,
Yeah.
gradually building up to those real conversations.
That's a great way to put it. And those online communities can be incredibly supportive.
Yeah.
You'll find people who are on the same journey as you,
Mm-hmm.
learning and making mistakes and
Yeah.
celebrating each other's successes.
Yeah.
It's a great way to stay motivated and build confidence.
It sounds like having a whole cheering section for your language learning journey.
Exactly.
Oh.
Now, one more thing the guide emphasizes is that even native English speakers make mistakes.
Oh, really?
Language is constantly evolving.
Right.
Nobody's perfect.
That's actually really reassuring.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off a bit.
It's about shifting the focus from perfection to progress. It's about celebrating those small wins along the way, the new words you learn, the conversations you have,
Right.
the moments when you feel yourself getting a little bit better.
Okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here. Start small, embrace those mistakes, and find your people. Those seem to be the big takeaways so far.
You got it.
Okay.
Those are the foundations for building confidence and fluency in English.
And what about immersing myself in English in other ways?
Right.
Like watching movies, listening to music, things like that.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
This guy talks about that too. You'd be surprised how much you can absorb
Okay.
just by surrounding yourself with a language.
It's like osmosis for language learning.
Exactly. Think about it as babies. We learn language through constant exposure.
Right.
We hear it all around us, and eventually we start to make sense of it.
Yeah.
You can recreate that environment as an adult, even if you're not living in an English-speaking country.
So I could put on an English movie,
Yeah.
even with subtitles, and just let my brain soak it all in.
Exactly. Or listen to English music while you're working out or doing chores.
Okay.
The key is to make it a part of your daily routine, even in small ways.
I've also heard about changing the language settings on my phone or computer to English.
Right.
Does that actually help?
It could be a surprisingly effective tactic.
Oh, really?
Think of it as like a gentle nudge
Okay.
to keep your brain engaged with the language.
Mhm.
Suddenly, all those menus and notifications are in English,
Right.
and you're forced to navigate them.
So it's like building mini language challenges into my day.
Exactly. And speaking of making it fun,
Yeah.
the guide encourages finding topics you're passionate about
Okay.
and trying to talk about them in English.
Okay.
What are some of your hobbies or interests?
Well, I love cooking,
Okay.
and I'm really into photography.
Perfect start by looking up recipes in English
Oh.
or reading photography blogs.
Yeah.
Then try talking about those topics with your speaking partner
Uh-huh.
or in your online community. The words will flow much more naturally when you're genuinely interested in what you're saying.
So it's about making language learning a part of my life, not just another chore on my to-do list.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the more you surround yourself with the language, the faster you'll learn.
Right.
And don't forget to celebrate those milestones along the way.
Speaking of celebrating, this guide talks a lot about focusing on progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
Why is that so important?
Because striving for perfection can actually be paralyzing.
Really?
It sets you up for disappointment
Right.
and can make you feel like giving up. Remember, language learning is a journey, not a destination.
Okay.
There will be ups and downs, awkward moments,
Yeah.
and plenty of mistakes along the way.
Sure.
But it's those little victories, those moments when you finally nail a pronunciation or express yourself clearly that keep you going.
So it's about celebrating those small wins
Right.
and remembering that fluency takes time.
Exactly. It's like training for a marathon. You wouldn't expect to run 26 miles on your first day, would you?
Of course not.
You'd start with shorter distances, gradually building up your endurance.
Right.
Language is the same way.
Okay.
Give yourself permission to make mistakes, to be a beginner.
Yeah.
Sound a little silly sometimes.
Okay.
It's all part of the process.
This is really starting to shift my perspective on language learning. It's not about being perfect. It's about enjoying the journey and celebrating those small steps forward.
That's the spirit. Now, are you ready for another key insight from the guide?
Bring it on. I'm all ears.
Okay, great.
This is all making a lot of sense, but sometimes those nerves just creep in, you know?
Yeah,
Like, what if I freeze up in a real conversation?
that's a common fear. And, this guide actually addresses that directly.
Oh, really?
It suggests using visualization techniques.
Okay.
Imagine yourself in those situations that make you nervous,
Okay.
like ordering food at a restaurant,
Yeah.
asking for directions,
Yeah.
maybe even giving a presentation in English.
Yep.
Picture yourself speaking confidently, clearly, and connecting with the other person.
So it's like mental rehearsal for real life conversation?
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's like athletes visualizing their performance
Yeah.
before a big game.
Right.
By repeatedly imagining yourself speaking English with ease, you're training your brain to believe it's possible.
Okay.
And that can actually help reduce those feelings of anxiety in real-life situations.
It's like tricking my brain into feeling more confident.
In a way, yes.
Okay.
You're creating a positive mental blueprint for success. And remember, the more you practice both in your mind and out loud,
Uh-huh.
the more those neural pathways for confident speaking will strengthen.
It's like building muscle memory, but for my language skills, this guide is full of great tips.
There you like it.
Is there anything else it covers that we haven't touched on yet?
There is one more crucial point I want to highlight.
Okay.
The guide emphasizes the importance of focusing on communication rather than perfection.
Okay.
Sometimes we get so caught up in trying to sound like a native speaker that we forget the real goal, to connect with others and express ourselves effectively.
So it's not about erasing my accent completely or using like perfectly grammatically correct sentences every time?
Exactly. It's about getting your message across with clarity and confidence. Think about it. Even native English speakers
Right.
have different accents and dialects,
Of course.
and they make grammatical mistakes sometimes.
Yeah,
It doesn't stop them from communicating effectively.
that's a good point. I guess we tend to be our own harshest critics.
Absolutely. We set these unrealistic expectations for ourselves, and then we get discouraged when we don't meet them.
Yeah.
But the truth is, most people care more about what you're saying than how you're saying it. They want to hear your ideas,
Yeah.
your stories, your perspectives.
So it's about letting go of that fear of judgment and just focusing on connecting with the other person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Remember, language is a tool for communication.
Right.
And like any tool, it takes practice to master. But the more you use it,
Yeah.
the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
Okay, I'm feeling much more motivated now. But I have to admit, sometimes it's hard to stay consistent with language learning.
Sure.
Like life gets busy and it's easy to let it slide.
I understand. The guide actually addresses that too. It talks about setting realistic goals
Okay.
and finding ways to integrate language learning into your daily routine,
Right.
even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
So instead of trying to cram in like hours of study,
Yeah.
I could just focus on smaller, more manageable chunks of time.
Exactly. Consistency is key.
Okay.
Think about it like brushing your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
You don't spend hours scrubbing your teeth once a week, right?
No.
You do it for a few minutes each day,
Right.
and that keeps them out. Healthy language learning is similar.
Yeah.
Even 15 minutes of focused practice each day can make a huge difference over time.
That feels much more achievable. Do you have any tips for making those short practice sessions more effective?
Absolutely. One great strategy is to use flashcards or language learning apps to review vocabulary. You can do that while you're waiting in line commuting,
Yeah.
or even just taking a break from work.
Okay, cool.
Another tip is to listen to podcasts or audiobooks in English,
Right.
even if it's just for a few minutes at a time.
So it's about finding those little pockets of time throughout the day
Yeah.
and using them to my advantage.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get creative.
Okay.
You could write a short email to a friend in English,
Yeah.
watch a funny YouTube video,
Okay.
or even sing along to your favorite English song. The key is to find activities that you enjoy
Right.
and that fit into your lifestyle.
So it's about making language learning a part of my life, not just another chore on my to-do list.
Exactly. And the more fun you have with it, the more likely you are to stick with it.
Yeah.
Now, the guide also talks about the importance of patience.
Okay.
Learning new language takes time and effort,
Yeah.
and there will be moments of frustration along the way.
Right.
But it's important to remember that progress isn't always linear.
So it's okay to have those days where I feel like I'm not making any progress.
Absolutely. There will be days when you feel like you're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Yeah.
That's completely normal. The key is to stay persistent and not give up on yourself.
Okay.
Remember, every mistake is a learning opportunity, and every small victory is a step closer to fluency.
It's like a roller coaster ride with its ups and downs, but ultimately I'm heading in the right direction.
That's a great analogy, and don't forget to celebrate those milestones along the way.
Okay.
Did you finally master a tricky grammar rule?
Uh-huh.
Did you have a successful conversation with a native speaker?
Right.
Did you understand a whole movie in English?
Yeah.
Give yourself a pat on the back.
Those little victories can really boost my motivation.
For sure.
I'm starting to see that building confidence in speaking English is about so much more than just memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary words.
Yeah.
It's about mindset consistency and finding joy in the process.
You've got it. It's about embracing the journey with all its challenges and rewards.
Right.
And remember, you're not alone on this path. There are countless others
Yeah.
who are learning English right alongside you.
Yeah.
And there are so many resources available to help you succeed.
I'm feeling much more confident and excited about this journey now. Is there anything else this amazing guide has to offer before we wrap up?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm ready for that final wisdom.
All right, so it wraps up with a powerful reminder,
Okay.
and something we've kind of touched on throughout this whole deep dive.
Okay.
Be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Learning a new language can be challenging.
Right.
And it's so crucial to acknowledge your efforts and celebrate like every milestone,
Yeah.
no matter how small.
It's so easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah,
We're focusing on what we haven't mastered yet.
exactly. But remember, everyone learns at their own pace. There's no
Mhm.
such thing as like a perfect language learner.
Okay.
Instead of dwelling on your mistakes, try to reframe them as opportunities for growth.
And don't forget to celebrate those moments when you feel yourself making progress.
It's like giving myself a high five for every small win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those positive reinforcements can make a big difference
Yeah.
in your motivation and overall enjoyment of the learning process.
Right.
And, the guide also emphasizes that fluency in English is a journey,
Okay.
not a destination.
So it's not about reaching some like magical endpoint where I suddenly know everything.
Not at all. Language is constantly evolving.
Right.
And even native speakers are always learning new words and expressions.
Yeah.
Embrace that ongoing process of discovery and enjoy the ride.
I love that perspective.
Good.
It takes the pressure off and makes it feel more like an adventure.
That's exactly it.
Mm.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
what are some key takeaways?
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to try to be more patient with myself and celebrate those small wins.
Good.
I'm also going to find a way to like incorporate English into my daily routine,
Great.
even if it's just for a few minutes each day. Perfect.
And I'm definitely going to try that visualization technique.
Yeah.
Picturing myself speaking English confidently in those situations that make me nervous.
Those are fantastic goals. And remember, you're not alone on this journey.
Right.
There's a whole community of English learners out there who
Yeah.
are facing the same challenges and celebrating those same victories.
Yeah.
So connect with others, share your experiences, and support each other along the way.
I'm feeling much more confident and excited about this journey now,
Yeah.
thanks to this guide and your insightful analysis.
Yeah.
I've got a whole new toolkit of strategies
Good.
to help me achieve my goals.
Well, it's been a pleasure diving into this topic with you.
Yeah, this is great.
Remember, fluency is within your reach.
Okay.
Just keep practicing, keep learning,
Uh-huh.
and most importantly, keep enjoying the process.
I will.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll hear you giving a presentation
Oh, wow.
or even hosting your own podcast, all in English, of course.
That's the dream. Thanks again for joining me today.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.